Wabikoba. Good evening. Thanks for joining us for this fabulous show. Good evening and thanks for joining us. A couple from the Cornwall area have been identified as the two cyclists killed in a tragic accident this week near the town of Red Rock. 65-year-old Robert Booth and 69-year-old Irene Booth were taking part in a cross-country tour from Vancouver before they were involved in a three-vehicle collision along Highway 1117. Jordan Mullaney has the story.
The pair were among 20 other cyclists in the group titled Cycle Canada on their way to the East Coast. The group was traveling eastbound on 1117 around 3 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon when they were struck by a pickup truck. OPP say the pickup also crossed into the oncoming lane, striking another pickup with a trailer and then a tractor-trailer unit. The two cyclists were pronounced dead at the scene. Two people in the eastbound pickup, a man and a woman from Austin, Texas, were injured and taken to hospital. The remaining group of cyclists took refuge at the Nipigon Arena before continuing on their journey the next morning. But there were some who chose not to continue due to the circumstances.
Some of them, it looked like they didn't want to continue on. Some of them felt they had to get out there and do it. And I don't know if some of them were doing it just to keep the spirit of the group going. No one looked really excited about getting out there, but I think they just wanted to continue on and help them forget.
Traffic Staff Sergeant for the OPP, Ken Manty, says they are still early in their investigation, adding that accidents such as this one should be a reminder for safe highway traveling for both cyclists and drivers.
Cyclists should stay to the right as safely as possible, so that they should be as far to the right as they can get. Drivers should obviously, when they see cyclists, should slow down, give them as much room as safely possible, and that's drivers that are oncoming and approaching them, so from both directions. If you're coming in the opposite direction, you see cyclists, you should also slow down and give them as much room as possible, especially if there's oncoming traffic.
An official with Cycle Canada says their thoughts go out to the family of the victims in the accident. An OPP spokesperson in Nipigon says charges are pending. Jordan Mullaney, TBT News.
Residents of a small trailer park west of Nipigon were mourning this week after a Friday night blaze claimed the life of one of their residents. The fire broke out in this unit at the Black Sturgeon Trailer Park in Lyon Township. It was reported to OPP just after 9 o'clock Friday evening. Nearby neighbors were first on scene and managed to rescue a dog from the residence. However, the lone occupant of the home, 66-year-old Fern Markhart, was unable to escape. Neighbors spoke very highly of the woman who had lived in the park for more than 15 years. They add she just lost her husband 3 weeks ago. The area had been without power for most of the day when the fire occurred.
Yeah, I can confirm there was no power at that time in the community. Currently, the Ontario Fire Marshal and the Regional Coroner's Office, as well as the OPP, are investigating the circumstances of the death.
An investigator from the Ontario Fire Marshal's office was on the scene Monday trying to determine the cause of the blaze. A 55-year-old man has died after losing control of his all-terrain vehicle near Marathon Tuesday morning. The driver was traveling on Wabikoba Lake Road when he swerved to avoid a falling tree before losing control of the ATV. 55-year-old J. Norman Knoll of Marathon suffered fatal injuries. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The Treaty 3 Police Service has been given a reprieve for at least another year. The chief of the police force had previously said the service would be disbanded August 19th due to funding issues. After an annual general meeting in Kenora on Tuesday, it was decided that the Treaty 3 will be keeping its doors open for another year. The election of a new police board and chair has brought some positive movement. The union that represents the Treaty 3 officers says there have also been commitments made by the board to work with the union and its officers. Meanwhile, the Anishinaabe Police Service is also facing deficit problems. Acting NAP's Police Chief Bob Herman is projecting a $1.1 million shortfall next year. Herman says the province has been stepping up to cover some of the federal budget cuts, but that's not enough. With many of their communities being remote, their costs are significant.
Gas has gone up dramatically in the last several years. We've never received funding for that. Our operation costs of maintaining our buildings has gone up because the governments have built us new buildings, but they've never given us the money to actually run them. Our benefit costs have gone up, and that's not unique to First Nations policing. That's evident everywhere in policing.
Herman says there will be negotiations with both levels of government in Ottawa next Friday. Well, important discussions are now underway that will eventually shape how the massive mining deposit referred to as the Ring of Fire will progress. Matawa chiefs will hold their annual general meeting in Long Lake 58 First Nation next week. Jordan Mullaney spoke with one chief who says they're hoping to announce their selection of a new name for the entire development.
Anything we do, we got to have a name.
And Chief Alan Togijic of Long Lake 58 wants the name of the Ring of Fire project to mean something to his community. The 9 Matawa chiefs will meet next week to narrow down their suggested name for the development that will eventually impact each of their communities. And while many are unsure of how official the title Ring of Fire actually is, the term is more commonly used to describe an area in the Pacific Ocean where a large number of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions occur. Togijic says it's time the name has some significance.
Now we got to come back to Earth, back to our communities. There's always a name. They must have a name, what they used to call the people up north. And even in Bay people call them Bigtago Nishnabik or Arakan Nishnabik. So we got to come up with a name that we will be able to identify and be able to say it's ours.
Minister of Northern Development and Mines, Michael Gravel, says he would support being involved in those discussions.
We recognize how important it is that we have those kinds of discussions prior to the more formal negotiations beginning. So we want to be able to obviously position it so that there is not just a comfort with the future opportunities, but that indeed the value added benefits that need to be seen in those communities go forward.
The municipality of Greenstone has been using the term Ring of Fire to advertise on municipal logos and has even applied to the province to secure the name. Greenstone Mayor Ron Beaulieu says they've been in support of their neighboring First Nations throughout the negotiation process, and this time is no different.
If it's going to make our First Nations feel that it's more part of them by changing the name, hey, I mean that's I have no problem with that. All I can say is that we as a municipality in Greenstone, we live in an area where we're surrounded with our First Nations, the Matawa First Nations, and we want to work together to the benefit of First Nations and also of the community surrounding.
Jordan Mullaney, TBT News.
Cliffs Natural Resources and members of the Martin Falls First Nation met behind closed doors in Thunder Bay this week. The two sides are trying to address the band's environmental concerns with the planned chromite mine in the Ring of Fire. The federal environmental assessment process for the Cliffs project is currently before the courts, and the chief of Martin Falls says the meeting was about finding a framework that works for government, industry, and First Nations. Jonathan Wilson reports.
Martin Falls Chief Eli Munias says under the guidelines of the provincial and federal EA process, his community would get less than 10 minutes to present their concerns. One of the major issues surrounds the chemicals that could be emitted at the mining site.
We'd like to know what chemical deposits that will come out of there. Is it going to be a danger to the river and to the air, and to the animals that live there, and to the hunters that use the land, etc.
Munias says sitting down with the company can accommodate some of the concerns nearby communities have. Cliffs Vice President Bill Bohr commends Martin Falls for focusing on the concerns rather than the process that's been slowing things down, like provincial negotiations.
When those issues are resolved, we'll be able to actually move forward. But when we made that announcement, we said this was more of an acknowledgement of where we are kind of stuck in the process than any decision to stop the process on our part. And I think you can tell by us being here and working hard with the community that we're doing everything we can to move forward.
Bohr says he's interested in hearing the objectives of the recently appointed provincial negotiator Frank Iacobucci and Mattawa negotiator Bob Ray. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
And stay with us after the break. It took 15 hours of negotiations, but Dalico Anishinaabeg Family Care and the CEP Union reached a tentative agreement this week. Well, after over 15 hours of negotiations, Dalico Anishinaabeg Family Care and the CEP Union reached a tentative agreement this week. The union will now take to the roads as voting on the new agreement takes place across the district. Union representatives say there's nothing new offered in the agreement, but they are satisfied that their concerns have been heard. After more than 2 weeks on the picket lines, the 350 unionized employees have now started to vote and will continue until Monday. If the vote is favorable, the bargaining committee hopes to have it ratified by next week. Local union president Candice Lavalley says the Dalico board is looking at voting on the agreement by Friday of this week.
We believe they address the issues, and our bargaining committee is recommending that our members accept this offer. There's some really good language in there, and you know, they'll make a very informative decision.
Lavalley expects to have a final answer later on Monday afternoon, with the hopes of getting employees back at work on August 6th. The clock is ticking as the future of Canada's world-renowned freshwater research station hangs in the balance. The experimental lakes area has operated for 40 years, but it could be shut down permanently by September 1st if a deal isn't reached to guarantee its continued operations. Courtney Rutherford reports.
This body of water is home to a one-of-a-kind facility that researchers depend on. It's used to better understand global threats to the environment, impacts of human activities on lakes, and promotes protection and conservation of the areas around us. After the federal government closed the doors of the research facility this past April, the Ontario government agreed to fund the area on an interim basis. But nothing has been heard on the situation since. Still, MPP Michael Gravel says the Premier is committed to seeing the ELA stay open, despite the looming deadline.
Right now, the province, through the Minister of Natural Resources, is engaged in very constructive discussions with the federal government, with the International Institute for Sustainable Development, to see that indeed the operation stays open.
The current agreement allows scientists to perform experiments in the 58 lakes until September 1st. If a deal isn't reached by then, the ELA will be locked down. Although MPP Michael Gravel confirms Premier Wynne is working on the matter, members of the Canadian Council Advocacy Group say they haven't heard so much as a word.
We wrote to all the people who were involved in it and said, would you please let us know what's going on? Give us some updates so you don't need to tell us any big secrets, just let us know the things are going on. That was on the 3rd of June. We haven't heard a word since then, and it was every one of the people who were involved in it.
The group is hoping to have an answer by the middle of August so they can prepare to picket if the facility in fact does close down. MP Bruce Hyro says he's hoping that the newly appointed Minister of State for Science realizes the importance of the ELA to our region.
Mr. Rickford is an intelligent man, and I hope that he is going to stand up for science here, and we're all going to be waiting with bated breath to see whether he does that.
The outdoor laboratory has been open for the past 40 years, and the future of the facility will be determined in the coming month. Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
A large infusion of money will be coming from the provincial government to improve Ontario's firefighting facilities. $47 million will be handed down in total, with almost $10 million going towards a new fire attack base in Armstrong. At a news conference on Friday, it was announced that the aging Armstrong base will be the recipient of new infrastructure. The quarters will be upgraded to accommodate 20 extra staff, and new helipads will be added as well. Other additions will include a new warehouse and backup generator. Sudbury will be receiving $25 million for firefighting infrastructure and renovations to its fire management center, while just over $12 million will be going to Haliburton to build a new fire management headquarters. Response and Operations Manager Dave Cleveley says the upgrades to the Armstrong base are greatly needed.
So Armstrong has always been a very strategic location. The facilities that are presently there are 50 years old or more. They're old, they're decrepit. It's costing us a lot of money to keep them up and keep them up to today's safety standards.
This is really about making sure that there are the facilities in place that allow them to respond and in the way that they need to, and also to be able to provide the kind of accommodations they need to be able to do that, and the kind of equipment that they need to be able to do it as well.
Construction at the Armstrong base is expected to begin within the next couple of weeks. Completion of the project is slated for fall of next year. Well, area drivers got their first look at another completed section of the 4-laning of the highway between Thunder Bay and Nipigon this week. The 14-kilometer stretch from west of Mackenzie Station Road to Birch Beach Road was open to traffic for the first time. There's still a lot of construction to take place before the total 104-kilometer stretch is completely 4-laned. But as Matt Scooby reports, there's a renewed sense of accomplishment for those involved.
That's so cool.
After 3 years and $62 million, another 4-lane section of Highway 1117 has been successfully completed, much to the delight of people on hand at the official opening. But no one was more excited than Minister of Northern Development and Mines, Michael Gravel.
Obviously a dream project. When I first got elected in 1995, I began talking about how I felt we deserved to have a 4-lane highway between Thunder Bay and Nipigon, and indeed that dream is coming true.
This section is the second of 13 that will make up the entire stretch from Thunder Bay to Nipigon. Gravel says the purpose is twofold.
The safety factor is really the big one. There's no question that 4-lane highways are safer. They certainly flow the traffic more safely, and that's important. And from an economic point of view, it helps move our goods and services better. It makes it more attractive for people to come through Thunder Bay and obviously parts of Northern Ontario.
Regional Commander of the Northwest Region for the OPP, Ron Van Stralen, agrees with the safety part, especially when it comes to dealing with accidents.
With the 2-lane highway, it's very difficult, especially in Northern Ontario, to get people rerouted. So you get a lot of people waiting, frustration, and dangerous situations. So when you're talking about a stretch of highway like this, it's a real boon to us in particular to be able to facilitate the flow of traffic and make sure that people get to where they got to get in a safe manner.
Gus Chiarello is a senior operations manager for Bott Construction, the company who built the new section of highway. He says it's been a lot of work, but they're proud to be finished, and they couldn't have done it without the help of residents along the way.
We came in here, we had issues with access. We couldn't access because the highway's in the back, the old highway's down further. People gave us, let us use their property to access the property, to access our work site, which made it a lot easier for us. They've been great.
But construction has also begun the expansion of the Nipigon River Bridge, another 13-kilometer section of four-laning between Highway 527 and Mackenzie is expected to be complete by 2015. Gravel also announced that $513 million will be invested into the Northern Highways program for the 2013-2014 construction season. 29 of those projects are in northwestern Ontario. Matt Scooby, TBT News.
Coming up after the break, North Shore marinas are hoping to save their boating seasons after closing this summer to upgrade their gas pumps. North Shore marinas are now hoping to salvage their boating seasons. Changes in safety regulations had forced Nipigon and Red Rock to close their marina gas pumps for nearly 2 months and carry out the necessary upgrades. Jordan Mullaney has more.
The final bill will total close to $30,000, but at least this family heading out on the lake won't have to worry about getting stranded out there now that the marina gas pump in Red Rock is back in operation. Earlier this summer, marina pumps along the North Shore were condemned due to not being up to new safety standards set by the Technical Standards and Safety Authority. Rossport, Nipigon, and Red Rock were all affected in the process. Now, 2 months later, and well into the tourist season, Red Rock Mayor Gary Nelson says things are finally getting back to normal.
Yeah, we have the pumps back in. A little bit of makeup work to do around the outside of the pump, put the bricks back in and clean up here a little bit, but yeah, we're back in full swing down here. And for a lot of the people around the town here that don't know this, we do have propane too for barbecues, exchange bottles. But yeah, everything's going pretty good here again.
Rossport officials have stated that they will continue to offer services such as docking, hydro, and more for the rest of the season. However, gas will not be one of them. With a new location well off the newly built wharf, Nipigon's pump is also back up and running. Mayor Richard Harvey says the final cost for the changes will likely total more than $10,000, which they were able to make room for within their marina budget. He adds that they've now addressed the issue and just hope for more notice in the future.
Obviously, our greatest concern is we want to make sure both safety for both employees and people who are using the facilities, who are refueling there, but also the environmental safety. We want to make sure that we're addressing all those issues, so we're happy to have done so. And hopefully we'll have a better relationship as we move on. We'll be able to have these discussions and be given opportunity in future times to rectify situations in advance of inspections such as this.
The Red Rock Marina Services Building will hold its official grand opening on August 9th, kicking off the weekend-long Live from the Rock Folk Festival. Jordan Mullaney, TBT News.
Well, more than 100 cats is a lot for anyone to handle, but a shelter in the Dryden area is getting along just fine now that it has a new location. Dennis Ward has the details.
But the majority of our animals are here now, all under one roof, so it's kind of a nice feeling.
Trevor Chu has been taking cats and dogs in the Dryden area under his care for about 5 years now. Many he would house at his own home. Others were put up in a building Second Chance Pet Network operated in the downtown. But after winning a big $100,000 contest put on by Pepsi, the operation was able to expand to a new facility just outside of the city.
We had an older building downtown, and we had a lot of animals at our place. And it worked out all right. Like, we had growing pains there, but while this was being built, because it's all donated money, and it's taking a long time to get it. It's a very valuable piece of property now. But home for lots of animals.
The shelter currently has about 120 animals on site. They try to adopt out as many as possible, but there's more animals than people who want them. But those who run the new shelter say the cats and dogs are in a much better mood in the new location.
I think that with the lights and the wind blowing through the windows every once in a while, and you know, the animals are more content, they sleep better at night, they're happier, they're easier to handle. I think they just love it all the way around.
The 39 acres of land also lends itself for a great time for the dogs under the network's care. The group is operating a boarding kennel at the new site as well. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Well, a group of walkers arrived in Thunder Bay this week. The Tears for Justice group is walking across Canada to draw attention to the hundreds of missing and murdered women on the Highway of Tears and across the nation. The not-for-profit group called Tears for Justice consists of family members who have lost their loved ones, social activists, and grassroots volunteers. The 13 walkers have come together to bring justice to the many missing and murdered Canadians and for the families still dealing with the effects.
Our goal is to fight for the families and be a voice for the families for a national action plan to eliminate violence against women and children throughout the country.
Among the walkers is Thunder Bay's Sharon Johnson, the co-founder of the Full Moon Memory Walk. She says this cause is in her heart. Sharon's sister Sandra was brutally murdered on February 13, 1992. The case is still unsolved. Sharon hopes events like these will prevent the grave injustices families like hers have had to deal with.
I would like to see a break in the case, of course, you know, that's what we all hope for. But unfortunately, it's not like that, you know, and that's why I think every little bit helps, you know, every little awareness event that I can participate in and help out with.
The Tears for Justice walkers left Sydney, Nova Scotia on June 21st. They'll arrive in Prince Rupert, British Columbia on September 20th. They're gathering stories in an attempt to create a national action plan protecting the people of this country. More information can be found on the Tears for Justice Facebook page. That's all the time that we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. Take care.